let's take a look at another camera. Got this enormous thing, which is a JVC GY-X3, and it's SVHS, and it's huge, and it seems quite cheap and nasty. There's no external sync input. There's only that one monitor output plug there, which is wonky. There's no, well, there's an XLR microphone on the back, but it's only 3.5mm connectors there for microphone. This built-in thing. The viewfinder is not removable, but it looks like it is. So that's weird. Really bizarre. The lens cable can't be removed. I don't understand that. It's permanently wired. How could you do that? What a weird thing to do. So it's got a wire, but it's, once you take the lens off, that's it. It just sort of swings around by the wire. Now, I don't understand that at all. There's only two positions on the filter. Why even have a removable lens if you can't remove it? Because it's stuck by the wire. Some sort of battery thing on the back, which I'm not sure what type of battery that is. Looks like it might be able to take two sizes, maybe, with that thing. Don't know, it's a bit strange. At least this one has a standard 12V input though, so let's try this out and see if it works at all. I've not turned it on before. This output connector might be snapped though, so yeah, we'll see what happens. Plug in the power. It's drawing 25 milliamps. There's a switch on the side. Okay. Came up, and I had the iris open. Oh, look at that. The viewfinder works too. So it works. Picture is fairly good. Let's put a tape in it. So the transport controls are under this little door on the side here. And I've got the tape. Fast forward, play. Oh yeah, seems to go. Should we try recording something? So the record's running. The counter's counting. Doesn't seem to be any audio input, but there might be a selection that needs to be made of which microphone it's using. Doesn't seem to have any response. There's a gain adjustment. Iris, you can make it over or underexposed. Seems to work. There's FAS. Not sure what that means. There's a max gain button. Okay, well, let's see if it recorded something. Yeah, it's got a sort of tearing issue. It's pulled over to one side at the top, which is a bit strange, and it's also very fuzzy. So yeah, sort of working. Sort of working. I don't really think it's that worth keeping this camera because it's just so weird. It's sort of cheap and it looks oversized. So anyway, put that away. Okay, well, let's get into this. I want to get rid of that microphone first because it's got remnants of foam stuff on there which is going to start going everywhere if we touch it. So let's see if we can get that off. Very tiny screws there. Another one underneath. What's under there? Oh no, there's a cable that's too short, so we can't actually do anything if we pull on it. Yeah, that's not good, is it? Kind of worse than what we wanted, because now it's just going to be flapping around. Yeah, we'll temporarily put it back, and perhaps we'll see. Oh, we already made a mess. Let's see if the viewfinder can come off by undoing these things. Maybe if we can get the viewfinder off, we can expose a connector for the microphone. Ah yes, and then there's a screw on the top. I think that will make it. I thought there was going to be a little cover that came off, but no, it's part of the viewfinder. Ah, and the wires. Now it's just dangling by the wires. Why are there no connectors in there? It's really living up to its cheap and nasty, yeah, what I thought from the start, that it seemed a bit low budget. So it's living up to that. So previously we looked at a consumer VHS JVC camera, and that seemed to be quite low budget as well. Perhaps that's just the thing with JVC cameras. Probably not all of them, but the ones that I happen to have got hold of. Yeah, the handle came off. Some sort of bracket thing. Can't take the lens off because we've got to get the wire out. I was wondering, so there's a plate there with two screw holes. So I'm wondering if that uncovers a lens connector. And then we would be able to get the lens off. So I'll unscrew that. But given we've undone two other things which we thought might lead to disconnection, and they haven't, perhaps, yeah, we shouldn't get our hopes up. Two screws on the bottom. They're different screws, so someone's already had a go at this. Nope. Wow. Doesn't let it open. Wow, that's taking the whole front of the camera off. So. Okay, you can't get into it that easily. Perhaps we'll try taking this whole side cover off then. Remember on the Panasonic camera, the cover came off nicely and there was one connector joining to all the front or side panel stuff. Let's see what this does. It's similar, but what was that? That was a broken piece of plastic. And this one you got a whole bunch of ribbon cables to deal with. It's fairly modular. Ah, so that might be a connector there to undo the viewfinder perhaps. So unplug. I thought there was an extra cable going to something. So we're going to have to unplug these ribbon cables. I suppose we just know that they go in order, and then you've got to disconnect all this bunch of stuff. Oh, that's annoying. Take off the shoulder pad thing. Just for fun. Okay. Is there another join in the housing somewhere? Doesn't look like it. So I was hoping I could uncover a connector to remove the lens cable, but what I thought was a little panel. Oh no, there is a panel. Okay, so there's a rim and then there's a panel in there. Get access to the viewfinder cables as well. Oh, that screw wasn't even tight. Yeah, it's had a few knocks. Now what happens? Okay, it's loose. We need to take that screw that we put back at the top. Okay, so it's kind of floating now. Pulling on that. Maybe you have to take off from the viewfinder end, although that's in the way. Let's see, if we take these 4 screws out here, will that give us access? Or give us a connector? What's going to happen? Nope, doesn't let you get in at all. Wow. I really don't want you getting in there. Okay, so I can tell this is the connector to the viewfinder, but the wires inside here are wrapped around a ferrite core thing out this hole here. Okay. Ah, I see, it's unplugged itself. Look at that, the whole thing comes out as one module. Wow, look at that. Okay, so other than that not fitting and needing to be unplugged, nothing else needed unplugging. Now we can access where the microphone connects. There's some connectors there. Again, they go through a core. Okay, we've got the microphone off, so let's put that away, out of the way, so that we don't get more of that crust falling off of it. And let's clean up this mess. Okay, let's take a look at this camera part. So now we can see what's holding the viewfinder in. This core, which did split itself in half, or unclipped itself. Wow, what an annoying thing to get off. I wonder if that was an afterthought mandated by some testing, because before that, if that wasn't there, or if it was in this cable, then it would have been possible to pull, if it was in the right position, pull enough that the connector emerged, and then you'd be able to unplug it. But yeah, no, they put the core around that, so I think that's an assembly error or some kind of, it's not a very good thing. Anyway, I wonder how self-contained this is as a camera that can operate by itself. I think I got a service manual for this one. Yeah, we did get a service manual, we can have a look at that later. Let's take a look inside the viewfinder now that we've unscrewed all its brackets and things. See if some good things lie within. No screw in that hole. Ah, it sounds like something snapped off there. Yeah, I think the post might have snapped off in that one. Yeah. And that's been twisted around a few too many times. Yeah, so even if you could undo this part, you still wouldn't have been able to get the cable out because it goes all the way over here before there's a plug. We'll just unthread that. There's a tally light. You can turn on and off. What have we got here? Okay, so this is the other type. With, instead of the Hitachi chip, it's some other one, BA7149F. There's a little board clipped in by the look of it. All the business on it. HV board. I wonder, was that the same one that was in the Hitachi camera? If we look at this viewfinder, which is also a JVC one, you can see that the flyback transformer is similar. It looks the same. It has a different part number though, and also the tube, it says this is a 40LB4, whereas this is saying it's a M04KAX07WB. I wonder what the difference is between those. Thought these tubes were all fairly similar. Maybe there are key differences. Will that come apart? Oh, it just comes out. Okay, very dusty in there. Oh, so that doesn't have any LED indicators in it, like what we saw in the other cameras. So that is a bit cheap and nasty too. Maybe it's on screen, I suppose that's not so cheap in that case then, is it? Got this neat little housing thing for the tube. Yeah, it's clipped, probably in multiple places. Yeah, neat little tube there. Okay, we'll just put this cover back together. Now that I don't know which way around it goes. It goes like that, because it's got space for the anode connector there. So that's interesting. We'll put this to one side and we'll investigate the rest of the camera section. So that is the cable coming from the lens, and it's completely unremovable because it's got one of those really hard to remove cable glands right down there. Oh, actually it's on a bracket, so it's not into this metalwork, it's got its own bracket in there, but you can't get to the screw without taking everything else off. Let's see. I reckon if we undid those 4 screws, we'd have to undo the filter adjustment. We could get in there. Yeah, let's do that. Just take this knob off. And then we've got 4 screws. Okay, then there's a ground wire, which is part of the lens cable. All for just not putting a lens connector on it. What's the idea? What are they saving or solving by not having a connector in this cable? Probably makes the factory assembly a lot more difficult, having to have those bits joined, and it probably makes anyone who comes to do servicing or repairs on the camera, makes that job a lot more difficult as well. So we've got a camera unit which looks pretty well sorted out. There's a board that's attached. What's that? It's like a screw that hasn't been done up, so it's only attached by one corner. I don't think we undid that, unless it was part of the housing, but then... oh, it's got heatsink stuff. Okay. Yeah, unless that was part of the housing, but it's not even lined up. The screw hole in there, it's like it's been bent. This might not want to come off because there's some devices there being held in, semiconductors held onto a heatsink. Oh, it's just one. Okay. Some sort of little power supply thing. A PS2 board. Transformer. Some FETs there. We'll put some clamp diodes on them. It seems like an afterthought the way that's been done. Like a genuine bodge. So all the boards are different. That definitely has 3 channels going through it, and so does that. I wonder if that's where the pickups come in and there's some sort of amplifier. It's not held down by much. Oh yeah, look at that. So the ribbon cables coming onto there are coming off of the 3 CCDs. Not such a nice layout compared to the other one where it had that paralleled up ribbon cable thing. This is all independent cables going to 1, 2, 3 different positions, and then there's 2. One goes off to this board on the other side. and one goes off to this board on the end. And there's ferrite cores in the cables. All the capacitors on that. Capacitors on that. Capacitors down there. Capacitors everywhere. Was it CC? I wonder what that means. Color correction? Who knows? Contrast compensation? More capacitors? Color correction or contrast correction or compensation? Don't know. Oh, that one's tied to the other board. PR1 board. The black level. IN gain, RGB in gain. So maybe the signal comes across from the sensors through that board into here, and then there's some gain adjustments. Maybe it's some sort of amplifier. Okay, well, let's put these back for now. Interestingly modular approach. Is that the one where the ground came in? I think so. Okay, and this power supply thing. So that's bent back and it had no screw holding it. Very weird. I wonder what special voltages this creates. We could look in the service manual. Presumably that was that screw. Okay, well there's the camera section. How many pins are used on that, joining it to the rest of the thingy? Okay, we found something. This connector here from the camera section to the rest of the camera. Here's the connector pin out. This thing here, C10. So it's got grounds, 12 volts, 9 volts, 5 volts, -5 out, and -9 out. Maybe those come off that special power supply. Switching power supply. Is this from the, I think this is from the camera's point of view. Okay, yeah, so out. Iris position, reset switch, VCR trigger, iris TD, some gain controls, shutter, clock and data. Must be some digital thing. Vertical drive, horizontal drive, clock pulse, I guess. Cable, EO, okay, ground, clock, out. Viewfinder, tele light, video ground, viewfinder video, viewfinder 5 volts, then RGB out. So if you provide the right sinks and clocks, this thing is a full camera module with an RGB output. So that's quite exciting. I wonder if we could get that to operate standalone, just for fun, as a camera module thing. Not sure if there's much point in that, because you can just buy standalone cameras if you want off AliExpress for $50 now. But anyway, let's have a look at we don't need to take about the lens because we've done lenses before. Let's get into the rest of the camera thing, which is falling over itself right now. So I want to just hold that cover back on because that's difficult to remove because of all the wires, although we did pull off the ribbons. And I'll flip it over and we'll go in on this side and see what we can find. Those seem to be, that's cross-threaded. Cross-threaded. Professional, yes. Yes. Okay, does this come off? It does. That's nice. Now, I wonder if this battery housing thing can get itself out of the way. Such a huge thing. There's a screw on the bottom. Then, we can take and do some screws in there, which hopefully are what are attaching it to the camera. There's more screws up here, yes. Is That weird thing's in the way. This didn't come with any batteries, didn't come with a power supply, didn't come with anything. It was just the camera in as is unknown condition. There's a 3.5mm socket inside. That wasn't accessible from the outside. It's just the BNC. That's weird, isn't it? I don't know what that's for, like secret audio signal thing. Look at that, it's got the same plug as in the other camera we looked at. So that's some sort of standard battery holder thing. Interesting. Okay, tuck that out of the way. Yeah, that flange goes over it. Let's take this off and we can see why this is loose. I think it's... no, it's not related to that, it's these ones here. So the nut on the BNC connector is loose, so it must have had people reefing on it for a long time. But why is there an internal 3.5mm earphone type socket, and there's some sort of chip there, MC14577. I wonder what that is. Let's look that up. A dual video amplifier. Interesting. Amplifier chip right on that board. Yeah, we're gonna have to take off the tripod mounting bracket to get to a screw. Screw that has a smaller head. So that's some sort of input power thingy. Input power, audio monitor output, auxiliary input, so presumably another microphone in. Now it looks like this whole mechanism could lift out if 4 screws are undone. Oh. Oh, that one's not even tightened. So what size are these? Definitely not 2. This is a 1. Try this wider 1. GI is 1, but they expand to different amounts even though they're both the same size. Oh, look at that. Oh, listen to that. So I think that must have been corroded in there, or it's been cross-threaded. Yeah, look at that. You can see where that's been stressed from being cross-threaded. So someone's had all this stuff out before and put it back in a rough manner. I suppose it was the same person that cross-threaded that one on the door. So this whole internal unit could come out. Nope. You've got to undo 4 screws on the other side as well before it will come out. Ooh. So if we put this down on this side, will it squash something? Look, that's all rusted. Let's see what we find. That's still tethered by a whole bunch of cables that I don't really want to undo. Yeah, so there's the same 4 screws again on this side. What should we do? I want all this stuff to just come out without having to disconnect too much. Maybe we should cut some cable ties there. That goes off to the power switch. That goes all the way into something. That's terrible design that you can't just unplug easy to access things. That's been the theme the whole way through, hasn't it? Can't get the lens off, can't get the microphone off, can't get the viewfinder off. Oh no, I wrecked that cable pulling on it. It reminds me of JVC. Oh, it was just a crimp pin. A JVC SVHS editing VCR. I think it was that, or it was a Panasonic M2 that I took apart. And every cable you pulled on to unplug, it would just rip the wires out of the crimps, which suggests the crimps weren't done in a very good manner. So there's the power switch. Okay, so that thing there is separated now. Now we can get this frame off. Oh look, there's something broken. I wonder where Oh, that's what we saw when we first opened it and it fell down inside, never to be seen again. So I think that's the DC selector switch cable we've got to unplug there. Okay, and then we can reattach it out of the thing so we can keep track of where things came from and went to. And then there's that external power input. I'll thread that out. Like that, we liberated it from this chassis. So on the bottom here, quite a bit of power wiring, fairly thick wires. I don't know where these shielded wires that came off the front panel, presumably some audio thing, where did they even go? They go right up to the audio head. So that means that the audio circuit is on this front board then, since the audio head, unlabeled connectors, is it that one? Or is it this one? That one there. So the audio section of the system is up there on the front panel board. Interesting, so there's audio level controls there. Oh, look at that, the level control signal comes from over here. So it's a bit of a mixed board, this, with digital stuff happening over here and audio stuff over here. And then the controls under this little door. Now we've got all this power wiring. There's more switch mode and some diodes on the top. Surface mount stuff, switch mode control ICs presumably, and surface mount FETs on the bottom. So the power input, then the wires from that go to this selector here, which selects off battery or DC input, and then that comes off this 3-pin cable, goes down onto this board, which is also where the battery input comes. Well, the battery input goes onto the orange one. Then the power switch comes off this two here. Interesting. And then that, all of the outputs of that power thing go into this big thicker cable, and that goes right in just behind this. So that's consistent to what we saw on the schematic, where there's a whole bunch of power inputs on here, and then that also provides power out, so we'll be going into this switch mode power supply. So that's interesting. So now in this tape mechanism we've got head cleaning thing, which gets bonked onto the head briefly when it's threading up. And here it looks like it's either the video amplifier or it will be the hi-fi audio pre-rec SE. It's got this ribbon cable that comes up from out of the head, where it's got those inductive coupling ring things. Wow, that has the same metal bracket thing as what we saw in the home JVC camera. That was one of the things that was giving problems to release it from the housing. The same design, very similar. So there's two layers of boards in here, and it looks like this one will hinge out. That looks like a hinge type connector. Let's see. Yeah, look at that. Then these socket. The ribbon cables that came from the front, these three here, they're going, that one goes onto the back plane board, but oh yeah, those ones do too. Okay, it looks like they were going onto another board, but yeah, they all go onto the back plane. Let's see these unplug. Maybe, is that emergency eject? Probably. The board, interesting things. I think it's got motor controls on it. That might be servo stuff. There's a little shielded area. Maybe that's where amplifiers from the inductive pickup on the head motor perhaps. And this one has a wire going to it, so we can't pull it out. What that does is SE board. This one doesn't seem to have any labeling says SS. S/S. System control and servo. Now there's another board in there that then carries various signals up, and that's to the main drive motor, which still feels good. Let's see, if we pull on this or push on it, will it eject? Oh, I don't think so. Oh yeah, there'll be an eject thing over here maybe? Nope. Thought there'd be some manual eject method by pushing on something. When your really important tape gets stuck in there, you just got to get it out. That's the record prevention switch. I reckon that this mechanism is the same as what we saw in that consumer VHS camera. This gear with the markings on it appears to be the same, and that transfer and those rings, and even that geared motor looks very similar, which is very interesting. It means they're using professional, I don't know if this really counts as professional. It's more of a prosumer thing than a professional. So more higher end cameras are using the same mechanism as the consumer ones. I'll grab it if I can find it. Okay, let's look at this. So here's the camera that we're taking apart, this mechanism, and this is another camera that we took apart in the previous video, GF450 I think, something like that. Yes, this is GF450 explored in a previous video, and we can see there that even the part number of this motor is the same down to the last letter. That says 25AB, this one's 25AA, so they're very similar. Well, I guess that's the flywheel on the motor. Maybe the difference is in the shape, because that one's got a board with different connector. Yeah, I can't really see unless we take that out. Yeah, that one's got wires coming off it, this one's got a connector. Maybe that's what the difference is in the part numbers. So this wheel looks the same. Yeah, the rings, the bottom of the head is going over there. The loading motor assembly, the motor is slightly differently mounted, but more or less the same thing. And that's also got this rail with that hook thing on it. Springs look the same. A little bit difference over here where there's brakes. There's an extra switch by the look of it. With that. Okay, so that's the eject. Ah, I see. So that is a switch so that it knows that it's been ejected, which isn't in this model. Head motor looks pretty much the same. That's interesting. What about the other side? Should eject it now so we can check it. So what have we here? That's in the play position. It's probably because we were fiddling around with it. Oh, it's because we were turning it on by blocking the end sensors. So the various rollers and things there are the same. That has an extra thingy there. Might be, oh, I don't know, some kind of notch thing. This one here, because it's SVHS, it will have an extra little switch for detecting the SVHS tape, which is down here. There's a little hole that a switch can poke into on SVHS tapes, which is just in there, which doesn't exist on this model. The idler gear assembly there looks the same with the blue, and this one here has got it too with the blue bit. So it looks like it's a more or less the same mechanism. A lot of reused parts. Even that tilting bit. That's surprising and interesting that they've kept common parts. Maybe they were made at similar periods in time. Okay, I think we've probably explored enough of this camera now, and its mechanisms and its circuit boards. Not sure what else there is to look at. It's a bizarrely low quality, maybe? Just questionably implemented. Lack of regard for ease of assembly and serviceability, which is unusual. or interesting, or it's unusual. Well, it's not unusual these days, but back then when things were made properly and usually designed well. So it's plugged in. PR junction PCB. So that takes a ribbon cable and a whole bunch of shielded cables. I think that is the whole connection to the video head. I don't think there's any more. It's all done through this board here on the top. I don't see any other signal type cables coming off of it. Okay, we can see it here. This is the pre-rec ASCII, and if we look in the service manual, we can see it. Pre-rec, this thing here, that's the little board, that one. So we've got video head, search heads, flying erase head, FMA, FM audio heads. Those come off through the inductive coupler thingies. And then this pre-rec board. So FM audio play and record, playback, FM audio. So FMA, FM audio, and then FM will be the video, I think, and then C. Is that for color, maybe? For the components of the video? Not sure. Or maybe it's control. Not exactly sure how that works. There'll be head switching signals somewhere, and then it goes off into the various bits and pieces. Main junction, the SS board, which is that larger one that we pulled out. Drum error, drum power. This looks like more signals down onto that junction board. Ah, no, this one here will be that front board. Yeah, the one that's on the panel. This thing. AUCP. And then there's schematics. There's pulse generators. Timing pulse generator. I don't know what board that's on. DR board. 1996. Or board layouts, and then next set of schematics. VGR board. They're all split across pages, which is a bit of a hassle. Very good, so there's lots of stuff going on. So I think we've taken this apart enough. I'm not sure if I'll put it back together because it's a bit weird. Might do some experiments with trying to get this thing to run by itself. Maybe it would involve having to extract some sync pulse signals. Yeah, that's difficult to tighten up because it's got its own ground on that side, and then it's got this piece of the metalwork on that side. So you probably have to desolder it to tighten it up. Interesting, it hadn't broken. I suppose when it's loose, that whole thing is moving around, so it didn't actually crack the solder connections. Anyway, very good. Interesting camera. Strange camera.